Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
Can we talk about the Tampa power play for a second?
We can. Did you want me to tell you what I wrote down about their power play?
Yeah, please.
I said it should be used as an instructional video.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so it's Friday, July 9th. The NHL season ended 2 days ago with the Tampa Bay Lightning defeating the Montreal Canadiens 1-0 in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Interesting that Tampa won the clinching game of the finals 1-0 and the clinching game of the semifinals 1-0 as well. Maybe goes to show you that Andrei Vasilevsky actually does deserve the Conn Smythe Trophy. We've got a lot to unpack here, as they say. But first, I do want to start off with a correction of something I said a few podcasts ago, where I mentioned that Vegas has been to the Final Four in every season of their existence. That's actually not true. There was one season where they were eliminated in the first or second round. I'm not sure. But they definitely did not go to the Final Four in that one season. So I stand corrected on that.
Okay. No big deal there. I mean, we got the gist of it. You know, Vegas has been good every year pretty much since they've been in existence, right?
Right. And the other correction that we should make is we were talking about high sticking penalties. And I was under the impression that, if you high stick a guy in the face, it's a penalty regardless. But apparently, if it's on the follow through of your shot, it's not a penalty. And I thought this was a new rule, but apparently it's not a new rule because Sam in Montreal emailed us to tell us that it's been the rule forever. So
right.
Another correction.
It's always been the judgment of the ref, whether it was off the follow through or not. Right. I think that's the whole thing. And in the case that we were talking about, the ref didn't see it, but then they looked at it on the replay for another reason, and then they realized they made a mistake.
So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get this show started. Do you want to start with Game 5 specifically or the series as a whole? Let's start with Game 5. Maybe that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I don't have much to say specifically about Game 5. I have a lot of notes. They're all about the series, more or less the series as a whole. But do you have anything that you want to say about Game 5? I mean, other than that, like what you just said, they won 1-0, and then they won against the Islanders 1-0. And Tampa's a great team, and they proved that they can play high flying and outscore you. And if you want to grind it out with them, they're going to grind it out with you and won't beat you 1-0 because their goalie's also fantastic, right? So
all that is true. I do have a couple of things about Game 5 specifically. Mm-hmm. So basically, the entire game was decided in a 4.5-minute period of the second period, where, if you recall, just before Tampa scored their only goal, Montreal was buzzing in the Tampa zone for what seemed like forever, probably only 2 minutes. And they had a bunch of scoring chances, didn't score. Then Tampa gets one scoring chance and scores the only goal of the game.
Do you remember I texted you halfway through the second period and I said, by the way, next goal wins? Like, you just knew that, like, whoever was going to score was going to win that game, the first goal.
Yes, I do recall. And then, if you recall, 90 seconds after Tampa scored, Montreal had a 2-on-1 with Cole Caulfield and Josh Anderson. And I don't know why Caulfield decided to pass when he had an open shot, and he's got a great shot, and he passed, and it was a terrible pass. And then Anderson tries to pass it back to Caulfield, and that was a terrible pass. And they didn't even get a shot on goal, whereas Caulfield should have just taken the shot.
Yeah, Anderson sort of juggled the pass, or he took a bad touch, and that screwed up the whole thing. And then nothing came out of it, like you said.
Right. So had Caulfield just taken a shot, I mean, he may not have scored, but that was the better shot to take than making a pass. So
right.
That could have tied up the game, and who knows what would have happened. But anyway, coulda, woulda, shoulda. If I had wheels, I'd be a bicycle. So one other thing before we get to the series as a whole.
Yeah.
So obviously, when the Canadiens lost the first 3 games, maybe not so obviously, but the coach decided to make some lineup changes for Game 4. Basically, he made 3 changes. He benched Gustafsson, Merrill, and Kotkaniemi. Now, I don't know why I didn't realize it at the time. I should have realized it right away. The minute he benched Kotkaniemi for Game 4, that meant that Kotkaniemi's season was over, because if they lost Game 4, the season's over, and if they win, they're not changing the lineup.
Right.
So if I'm Jesperi Kotkaniemi, I'm so pissed off. I'm so disappointed. I don't even know what word to use to describe how I feel, because basically you're telling me this is the most important game of our season and you don't think I should be in the lineup. Now, was he struggling in game 1, 2, and 3? Yes, he was. But I think every single player on the team, except for maybe Nick Suzuki, was struggling in game 1, 2, and 3. There are other guys you can bench. This guy, Kotkaniemi, is very young, and you drafted him very high, and he's supposed to be part of the future. He's supposed to be an integral part of the future. So now, tell me something. When you get back to training camp next season, and the coach is telling you, you're an important part of this team, and we need you to be one of the top forwards, how's he going to feel when you just told him a few months ago that he wasn't good enough to play in the most important game of the season?
Well, Ducharme, they asked Ducharme about this, and he said that he said all the right things. Obviously, they're not going to, what is he going to say? Kotkaniemi was pissed. He's not going to say that, even if it's true. But he said, I explained to him, he's a team player. He understood. He didn't like it, but he understood. And basically, it was all about matchups because they got exposed in the first 3 games because they needed 2 defensive centers. That's what Evans was going to bring. So, the excuse is kind of bogus, but look, they won game 4, so Ducharme can hang his hat on that, I guess. So,
yeah, it's nice having an extra center. Kotkaniemi's played the wing before, so if that's really what you're so concerned about, they could have found a place for Kotkaniemi in the lineup. But anyway, I don't want to go on and on about that for an hour.
No, because they didn't lose. I don't think they won or lost because of that. But like you said, it's all about what's going to happen next year, or maybe this year now, in the next season, where does the coach have a good relationship with this player? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Right. And then, imagine you're Kotkaniemi, and then, eventually you're going to be a free agent. Do you want to re-sign with this team?
Well, he's a restricted free agent right now.
Right. But when he's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
So,
we'll see.
anyhow, I've been doing all the talking, so I'll let you, because I know you've got a list of notes that you want to mention.
I have a whole bunch of stuff here, random thoughts from the playoffs. Look, I'll start with the biggest cliche, right? Let's just get the cliches out of the way. It was a great playoff run. I'm proud of the team. I love the way the whole thing went. We lost to a better team. Point final, right? What are you going to say? But they gave us memories to honestly, think about the Leafs series. How long ago was that? I had to look back today on the calendar to see when those games were.
It was almost 2 months ago.
It's so long ago, right? So think about it. For 2 months, we've been wrapped up in hockey, with this team giving us one great memory after another. And I just wrote down some of the amazing memories that they gave us just to highlight stuff. And maybe you'll tell me what you think. But 6 overtime wins, each one was amazing, right? Anderson's goal versus Tampa, the game 4, the winner that kept us alive. Suzuki and Caulfield versus the Leafs, the 2-0. Lekkonen's obviously the OT win versus Vegas. That's the biggest goal maybe of the playoffs, right? Sent us to the final. Think about all the way back, Josh, to game 1 versus the Leafs. Paul Byron's superhuman shorthanded goal. That won game 1, that's just incredible. The whole comeback, being down 3-1 against Toronto, we're gonna hang our hat on that forever. And Leafs fans are gonna, Leafs fans are not gonna be able to chirp any Canadiens fans forever, basically because of that series. And the whole thing is just proving everybody wrong every step of the way was just great. Just getting behind the team just felt great for the last 2 months.
I'm gonna add 2 more that you.
And there's plenty more.
There's tons more, but yeah. So there's the one where Caulfield made that great pass to Foley against Winnipeg.
Fantastic, yeah.
And then the 2-0 breakaway with Byron and Anderson against Vegas.
That was sick because, first of all, that was sick play, right? Honestly, Paul Byron was so good there. Look, we've mentioned Paul Byron twice, and unfortunately, he is going to be a casualty of the salary cap, whether he's going to not sign or they're going to leave him unprotected. I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. It's just not going to fit, and it's too bad. But, he's a bit of a game breaker, because he goes about his business and every now and then he's just going to do something amazing. And then the other play also that we didn't mention in there is Caulfield's goal against Vegas, where he tipped the puck to himself and went in on a semi-breakaway and just ripped it past the goalie.
By the way, speaking of Caulfield, there were a few situations in the Tampa series where there were like coincidental minors called, and so it was 4-on-4, which doesn't happen very often in the NHL anymore.
There was so much 4-on-4 in the Tampa series. It was unreal.
And I don't recall seeing Caulfield on the ice for any of those. Now that's when he is at his best, when there's more room on the ice, like in overtime in the regular season, which is 3-on-3. But still, why was he not on the ice for 4-on-4?
Our coach took a very defensive stance every time there was a 4-on-4. The first two guys out were Danault and Lehkonen right away. He's playing defense, right? Like right away, he's playing defense. Why not get on the, you got to score. But look, they had their strategy. They knew that they had to keep it low scoring. That's what they tried to do. But yeah, he's also, there's many times where I noticed late in games, Caulfield sometimes wasn't on his line. They would put someone else on that line just for one shift or two shifts because they want someone a little bit more responsible, I guess. Responsible is not the right word. I think he is defensively responsible. He's just small, right? So he doesn't win any puck battles. You see, he goes in the boards. He can't fight along the boards, right? That's not his game. But look, the guy's played what? How many games has he played? Like, let me give you a stat here that I wrote about Caulfield, which is crazy. Okay, first of all, going back to our episode from more than 2 months ago, I guess, which was bad stats, right? The Stanley Cup Final was a smorgasbord of bad stats on the broadcast. Every 2 minutes, they're showing something on the screen that I was like rolling my eyes at. Because Tampa's been in the final the last 2 years, and they've been in the final the last 10-ish years. They've had a good record in the playoffs, whereas the Canadiens haven't been to the final for 28 years. So every time they start talking about, this is the first Canadiens goal scored by a rookie in a final since 1979, like, come on, give us a break. But there was something cool that I want to run by you. They said that Cole Caulfield assisted or scored on 3 overtime goals in these playoffs, which was the first time a rookie's ever done that. And then I was thinking, if the Canadiens are in the playoffs next year and Caulfield keeps scoring overtime goals, technically he's still adding to his record because next season is going to be his rookie season. So he's still going to be a rookie in the playoffs next year.
But you can't add from this year to last year because it's 2 different seasons. But yes, he's still a rookie next season. That's correct. It's similar to when, Ken Dryden played, 8 games, and then he was a rookie the next season.
Ken Dryden went a step further in that he won the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Right.
Before technically his rookie season.
Correct.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you want me to continue with my notes? And they're really random. We're going to jump all over the place. But.
Yeah, I mean, I have some random notes as well, but go ahead.
So the trophy presentation and the handshake line. The handshake line is still the greatest thing in sports. There's no other sport where players beat the crap out of each other for 7 games and then they just shake hands and hug. Right? It's really fantastic to see. I always like to look at who's talking to who and see the goalies talk to each other, so there wasn't really anything memorable there. I just love the handshake line. Can you tell the listeners how you feel about Gary Bettman in like 5-10 words?
I can't stand him. Every time I see him, I want to punch him in the face, and I don't ever want to hear him open his mouth. And he did that intermission interview with Ron MacLean, which is a big waste of time because, first of all, Gary Bettman is not going to answer any question that he doesn't want to answer. So it doesn't really matter what Ron MacLean asks him. Bettman's going to say whatever he wants anyway. So you might as well not have the interview.
You texted me a great thing before the interview. You texted me saying, Bettman's coming on to do the interview with Ron MacLean. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but I'm sure I'm going to hate it no matter what.
Exactly.
It was really, really funny. But he really... Now, I could be wrong. You could correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. Doesn't Bettman normally sort of congratulate the team that's made it all the way to the finals at one point in his little speech when he's handing the cup?
Yeah, I think he usually does. He's like, it was a great effort by, fill in the blank, the team that lost.
he didn't mention the Canadiens at all. At all.
So I didn't notice that, but I have a conspiracy theory.
Well, okay, you go. I have my own, but yeah.
So, Gary Bettman and the league office, they don't want a Canadian team in the finals. They don't want a Canadian team in the semifinals. They didn't have a choice this year because there had to be at least one Canadian team in the Final Four. And that is one of the main reasons why next year we're going back to the old divisions so that it's possible that there are no Canadian teams in the Final Four next season. And Gary Bettman can say out loud whatever he wants, but he was not happy when there was a Canadian team in the finals.
And the other thing is, there's two things I'm going to add to that. First of all, NHL on NBC is over, and we're going into ESPN now. So 100 times more incentive to have American teams in the final to make a big splash with ESPN, right? They want to grow the game in the United States. They want to grow the ratings. Everyone wants to make money. But the other thing is, Bettman loves the Vegas franchise. That was his baby, right? He got criticized for wanting to put a team in the middle of the desert, and that's his team. And Canadians took him out, right? So I think the Canadians kind of ruined his party. He would have loved to have Vegas in the final. Like his dream final was having Vegas there, against whoever.
And my dream final is like Montreal versus Edmonton, or Montreal versus Calgary, or Montreal versus Vancouver. That's my dream final.
The ultimate final this year, and I think it could have been possible, would have been the Canadiens versus the Bruins. That would have been sick.
That would have been insane. Yeah.
Right? That would have been sick. I'm going to continue with my random thoughts. Like I said, it was great that the city's buzzing when the Canadiens are in the playoffs, and we had fans jumping on the bandwagon, casuals, I call them, just flags on your cars and signs, and people on social media posting "Go Habs Go." People that haven't watched a game all year all of a sudden are watching hockey, and that's what happens when your team makes it this far. But there's so many fans that blamed everything on they blame the refs for everything. There's so many people, hardcore fans, I see them on social media saying how the refs screwed us. And look, I don't think the refs did a great job. Like, you know how I feel about the NHL playoffs, right? The reffing is brutal because nothing gets called. It's a different game. The regular season and the playoffs are two completely unrecognizable games. That's why it's so hard to score. But I'm going to tell you right now, and any fans that are listening, if you are saying, anytime someone says the refs didn't want the Canadiens to win, I immediately shut that down. That is complete, utter nonsense. The refs might not call a good game. They may blow calls. They may not call anything. But to say that a ref is for one team or another, no. Let's just stop right there. And even Chris Lee, who is the most brutal of all brutal refs, and there's a guy that had stats showing from the last 10 seasons all the games that Chris Lee refed against the Canadiens and how many more penalties he's called against the Canadiens versus any other team. I still will shut it down. There's no way a ref is biased against one team in any way. There's just not.
And if anything, the fact that fewer penalties were called was only an advantage to the Montreal Canadiens because Their power play isn't that good, in case you forgot. So letting the Canadiens get away with stuff, again, only helped Montreal.
And not only that, the Canadiens are rolling those four defensemen, right? Perry, Petrie, Sherratt, and Weber, and Edmondson, and they're rolling those four defensemen over and over and over. Those guys are not fast. Petrie can skate. The other three can't. And the Canadiens are playing clutch and grab, smash you in the face hockey the whole time. Those defensemen, their whole game is based on how much they can get away with. Shea Weber tried to murder Braden Point twice in the series. She literally tried to kill the guy. So all the non-calls, you're right, it only helped the way the Canadiens were playing so defensive, right? Because Tampa's like you said, Tampa's power play. Well, Jesus, I mean.
But what I wanted to mention, because you mentioned the Canadiens defenseman, I don't know why I felt vindicated when Romanov scored in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, he should have felt vindicated, and hopefully the coach remembers that.
Well, I think we're going to be in a situation next season where the coach isn't going to have these choices. Merrill and Gustafsson are gone. Like, these guys are not coming back.
Thank goodness for that.
They're UFAs. They're not going to sign. They were brought in as depth. These guys are not going to be around. So Romanov's going to play. They have other defensemen coming up. They have some other players, but Romanov's going to play. He's going to be a regular just like he was all year, to be perfectly honest. There's no reason why he should be scratched. I'm going to give you two more things. The press conferences. Let's talk about press conferences.
So, unfortunately, I only saw the Tampa press conference. I didn't get to see the Montreal press conference because it wasn't televised, at least not on the channel I was watching.
Right. Well, I got here you listen to the sports radio, so they play the audio of the Canadian stuff. You hear it all, and then I saw some stuff on social media. But yeah, Carey Price's press conference with Weber was beautiful, and Gallagher was crying. He was crying.
Yeah, I saw the clip of the Carey Price and Shea Weber thing. I didn't see the Gallagher clip. I'm sure if I Googled it, I could find it.
Price said, actually, I'm going to get philosophical here, Josh. Price said the best thing you could say. He said he's really proud of the team and all that kind of stuff. But he said, I'm only disappointed with the result, meaning there's nothing else to be disappointed about. You look at yourself, now I'm just reading into his quote, but you look at yourself, you gave everything you could. You look at all your teammates, they gave everything you could for themselves and for you, the team. And the only thing you have to be disappointed of is the result. And unfortunately, sports sucks because we measure success by championships. But I think that Carey Price is really not measuring his career by championships, obviously, because he doesn't have any. So that's good, but good for him. But not good for him. Sorry, but he's looking at his whole career and this whole playoff run as like you look at things in life, right? It's the journey, right? You get the experiences in this journey that you're on, and yeah, it sucks that he didn't get the championship that he deserves, but I think he's proud of everything else he's proud of everything, not everything else. He's proud of everything. He's proud of everything. It just didn't work out the way they wanted. And that's all I have to say about that.
So I was listening to a podcast, obviously not a Montreal podcast, but a hockey podcast, and they were talking about what they thought is going to happen to the Montreal Canadiens next season. And so they were debating whether Philip Deneau is going to be back with the Canadiens next season. So I was laughing because, yes, he played great, and yes, he deserves to be back on the team next season. But all that is irrelevant because he's the only French Canadian on the team, and he's 100% going to be back on the team next season unless the Canadiens somehow acquire another French Canadian player. So that's not even a question.
Well, they have Jonathan Drouin, technically.
Well, he's going to be gone. He is not going to be on the Canadiens next season, guaranteed.
It's interesting. Deneau's thing is interesting because he asked for a certain amount of money last season when they were negotiating. He didn't want what they were offering, so they decided to just let it be and see what happens at the end of this year. He had if you just look at numbers, he had a lousy season. He had a much worse season statistically than he did the year before. And in the playoffs, what did he have? 1 goal? Right?
Not only that, I think he led the team in ice time and only had 1 goal. I don't think that's ever happened to a team in the playoffs.
Right. So purely on statistics, he shouldn't get a big contract. But obviously, his contribution is elsewhere. It's shutting down Braden Point. It's shutting down Mark Stone. It's shutting down Marner and Matthews. That's what he did. He successfully did that all throughout the playoffs. So the problem for him and his agent is that's very hard to measure, right? You can't put that in dollars. So we'll see, but you're right. He's going to be back. He's definitely going to be back. There's no doubt about it. Can I just get back to the press conferences for a second? Can we talk about Kucherov's press conference?
Sure. I was afraid you were going to mention him. I don't think he deserves any airtime on our show whatsoever, but go ahead.
Oh, so then we won't talk about it. That's fine. I just think he's there's people in the world that have class and there's people in the world that don't have class, and he doesn't. And I see people on social media defending this guy, saying he won the Stanley Cup. He could do whatever the hell he wants. If he wants to, I'm like, he could do whatever the hell he wants. Why is he insulting Marc-Andre Fleury? Why is he insulting all the Canadiens fans? There's no point. Other than that, well, the point is he was drunk. It goes back to like the first thing your parents taught you when you were 3 years old, Josh. 4 years old. It's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. It's like simple, common courtesy of being a real normal human being, which clearly he is not. He's not. He's a scumbag, and we'll leave it at that.
I just wonder. I wonder if he watches the video of his press conference, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, whatever. I wonder what's going to go through his head when he's sober and watching that. Similar to, I wonder what's going to go through Mark Scheifele's head when he watches his press conference after the Canadiens Winnipeg series ended as well. So those are two players who I wonder if they're going to even regret the things that they said, or they're not going to care maybe. Who knows?
Well, it is the measure of a man, right? Like a person who can tries to improve themselves and looks at themselves more critically will apologize or maybe have some type of regret, and then people who have no clue in life are going to double down and say, yeah, I was right and I stand by what I did. Let me ask you a hypothetical question.
Before you ask me, I'm looking forward to the first Montreal Tampa game next season. It's
going to be great. Let's talk about double standards, because people are defending Kucherov. They're saying it's fine what he's doing. PK Subban wins the Stanley Cup next year, whatever team he's on. The New Jersey Devils win the Stanley Cup. PK Subban shows up to the press conference drunk without his shirt on. What do you think happens?
Oh yeah, he gets grilled in the media, or sorry, on social media.
There's not one person standing up for him saying what he's doing is okay. And here I have at least 50% of the people saying Kucherov can do what he wants. So just think about that.
By the way, speaking of people who were defending Kucherov, PTI, they never talk about hockey. They led with the story of Tampa winning the Stanley Cup. I was shocked that it was the top story. And one of the hosts on PTI thought that what Kucherov did in the press conference was very cool. Those were his words.
Well, I mean, if it would help to form an opinion, at least if you would watch one hockey game a year.
Right. I don't put any stock into what they talk about when they talk about hockey on PTI.
Yeah. So my notes are done. I'm at your mercy now.
No, well, there's no need, because my notes are also done, and we've been talking for quite a long time, so we should probably just wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's the Habs season. Like I said, I'm proud of the team, and I'm going to remember this playoff run forever. It was really great, and it was fun. And on these episodes that we did, despite if we thought we were jinxing the team or not, were still fun to do,
Yeah, no, it was fun to watch the games. It was fun to do the podcast. I have to tell you that last night was the first night where there was really nothing to look forward to on television, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Plus, the weather here wasn't great, so I couldn't even go outside. But eventually, the weather cleared up. I went to play tennis, and I was glad that I had something to distract me.
Well, I mean, you're not watching the NBA playoffs, but there was a game last night, although I didn't watch that either.
It's funny enough, I did watch the fourth quarter of that game, but I have no interest in who wins that series.
We can go back to our episode number 202, by the way. And that was the what we called the hypothetical championships, where we sort of ranked our favorite sports teams by their importance in our lives.
I recall it very vividly.
We both had the Expos number one, and obviously the Expos don't exist. But Wednesday was a convergence in my life of things that could never possibly happen. And thank God, like we said in that episode, the episode was based on what happens if the games were on at the same time. They weren't on at the same time, but the Canadiens were playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, and England was playing in the semifinal of the Euro all on the same day. And those are I think my number 2 and 3, right, in my list. So
I had number 2 and 7 on my list playing that same day because England was playing against Denmark.
Anyways, I can't wait for Sunday's final. I just can't wait.
I'm sure.
So, I mean, that's it for our Habs podcasts. We had a really good schedule going, doing our normal episodes every week or two with a topic, with our favorite whatever the topic of the week was. And I guess we'll get back to that, no? So we the next podcast is our favorite cities. That's We had that lined up.
Yeah, we've had a lot of time to think about that, so we're probably ready to go.
And I'll tell you, Tampa's not on my list.
It's not on mine either, since I've never been there.
All right, awesome. I'll talk to you next time.
All right, have a good week.